that in your emails, by all means get the pen and paper out, but if you do miss a point, obviously the recording will be there for us. Look, I do need to say, it's my job tonight to give as much content, value and expertise as I can to all of you. I want you to be able to take what you learn and see tonight and implement it for your investing future. You should be able to do that with or without Ripehouse. It needs to be standalone. It needs to be best in class. So please challenge me to do that. If you have any questions, put your hand up, ask the question in the chat bar on the right-hand side, the question bar. If it is relevant to that slide, that piece of content, I will stop. Otherwise, I'll be gathering it, that question and others together for a dedicated question and answer session at the end. Okay? So no questions are off the table. Whatever it is related to property, the research or methodologies, etc., please let me know. And all the way through, if anything is not clear, jump in. I would love to hear your feedback, positive or negative. I want to keep tonight engaging back and forth. Let's keep it a dialogue so we all get the most out of it. All right? All right, enough of the intro. Tonight, of course, is the November Pinpoint Predictions Research Deep Dive. We're going to be going through patterns, research, emerging states, and then obviously giving a snapshot of our current November research and allowing you to pick and choose where you'd like to go into more detail. Obviously, I'm going to be using the Ripehouse software and systems tonight, so you can peek under the hood, so to speak. You'll be able to see me using it. But best of all, obviously get a lot of takeaway knowledge from the best parts of our research, where to invest for capital growth and outstanding yield in November 2017 and beyond. Okay, that's going to be what we're going to be going through tonight. Before I do, a little bit about me, please, if you will allow me to go into a 1 or 2 minutes introduction to where I've come from. It'd be great to give a little bit of context. Who am I? And obviously who you are as well. So while I'm talking about myself, please just let me know in the chat bar where you're tuning in from tonight. Are you a first-time investor or you've been around the block a few times? Are you currently looking to invest, and perhaps where and when? It would be great to give a little bit of information and dialogue. So keep that coming through. About me though, I've actually been investing since the early 2000s. Currently calling in from tonight from down here in Hobart, Tasmania, where I bought my first property in the early 2000s. I had a few false starts. We didn't have much money growing up. I lived with my father, who was actually on a pension. I saved up some money, went to buy a property, and he actually talked me out of it because of the risk involved, supposedly, of the big investment that I was making. So I ended up buying a sports car in from Japan, believe it or not. Couldn't insure it when it got here, sold it quite soon afterwards, and then after that false start, had a bit of a dabble in shares and things. I was very ambitious. I really wanted to try and take the bull by the horns and move forward. So I moved in and purchased my first property back in early 2000s for $145,000 from memory, and rented it straight away for $240 a week after doing a quick reno, which at the time I did myself actually. That property obviously did really well. We had record capital city growth down here in Hobart, 2004-5. Had 45% capital growth, which obviously helps. Was able to very soon after buy a second property down here. Then obviously met my beautiful wife Anna, and we moved to Sydney. So wanted to keep investing very soon after, continue that journey. Had built up a network of other investors online, so I guess had met and talked with them online whilst I was down here in Hobart, and then talked with that support group in Sydney when I arrived, and we were targeting an area called Mount Druitt in Western Sydney. Okay, lower purchase price at that time. This would have been about 10 years ago now, I suppose, or a little bit less. Obviously before all the recent growth in Sydney, but the particular property that we were targeting, we went and inspected it. It was at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's a lower socio-economic area, okay? But this particular property was in a reasonable street. It was a cul-de-sac. We inspected the property. It did seem cheap for what it was in the particular street that was in. And when we obviously saw the property, we realised why. The back fence had been knocked down, and the locals were using it to walk through the property at the end of the cul-de-sac between the local public housing enclave, which you'll see the importance of knowing where this is tonight and how to find it. Very important. I'll show you how to do that later. but they were walking between that and the local train station. Obviously, those things are very hard to identify and pinpoint. This had compromised that property, and this actually really shook me. I lost my confidence. I felt out of my comfort zone. I didn't understand how people lived and value and how to assess value and growth, and these type of things really threw me. So we went back to our drawing board. It was actually a period of about 2 years where my wife and I spent the time every weekend or whenever we could going out for breakfast and brunch and lunch to every different suburb. We went through a whole list across Sydney and Greater Sydney and even most parts of regional New South Wales, to be perfectly frank, looking at understanding different suburbs, how people live there, why they live there, what the value proposition was. And we developed confidence, but more importantly, we developed a framework for comparison, for assessing value and potentially for growth. Okay, we obviously then purchased and continued on that merry journey, but Ripehouse was born then. Okay, so we've been operating since 2011. It has evolved from that original framework into now a dedicated research company that provides tools for individual investors to find very effective investment properties. Okay, so I will be using those tools in reference tonight, but the underlying methodology and the theories have been refined from mine and many other investors' journeys, and it's provided to you to use to facilitate that search and purchase, to be able to negotiate effectively, understand value, and compare apples with apples, whether it might be in Northern Territory, down here in Tassie, Sydney, or Western Australia, wherever it is, finding their absolute peak potential. Okay, so that's what we're going to be taking you through tonight, is a system to be able to do that framework. We're obviously going to be talking about November and going into a deep dive of our research for this month, but then also obviously demonstrating the software and why we do things. Okay, let's jump right in. Lots of you have come back. Please let me know where you're calling in from again tonight. As a reminder, potentially if you're a first-time investor, just starting out, or you've been around the block a few times, you've got a few properties. Peter's mentioned he's got 3 properties, looking currently for his 4th. He is based in Western Sydney, looking in Queensland, but he's asking a question, is that a good thing? We'll see that tonight, I suppose. James is from Sydney as well, have a few properties, looking in South Australia or Victoria. James, I'm not sure if that's because of our recent research, but those areas, many nice pockets of opportunity in those states. I'll take you through that a little bit later. Karen has not purchased a property yet, owner-occupier, not quite ready to invest yet. Please keep those coming through. I'll jump back over here to introduce this slide, okay? What if I could show you a system? I guess this is the real core of what we're going to go through tonight, in addition to the research, is a system that we could reliably join together, implement each step at a time to deliver outstanding growth results. I'm going to be taking you through some case studies and some information tonight where other Ripehouse users have been able to achieve outstanding growth numbers. I mean, we're talking numbers here that really make ordinary growth figures look very substandard. If you get this right, it can be very powerful and it can deliver us amazing results, okay? The first job we have to do in this system is look across the whole country for peak opportunity. I call that increasing our catchment area. Once we've found that opportunity, getting the local government area right, and then the absolute #1 suburb in that local government area to drive growth forward. The absolute 1, 2, 10 streets in that suburb that all the locals know are very hot at the moment, and we want to target those. And we want to be able to do that for every suburb, okay? We want to know the exact properties and how to negotiate at or below value for the properties most in demand. We don't want to be left with a white elephant. We want to be able to do that analysis. When we combine each of these layers together, we can do amazing things. We can generate astronomical growth results in some cases. I'll take you through a case study later where another Ripehouse investor's been able to reliably generate 25% uplift in his first year of investment by combining this system with excellent negotiation. Okay, this is going to be each section. I'll be breaking down the whys and the hows and going through this step by step. All right, let's not muck around. Let's jump right in. Our first job in looking for amazing growth opportunities from day one of purchase is increasing our catchment area of interest. What I mean by that, if we were limiting ourselves to our current comfort zone, which might be the area that we live in, we're familiar with, we understand, it might, it's our local area. We've grown up here. We know why people buy and why they live. We know the exact streets and properties to buy. But it's not much of a, it's not much chance that that area that we're comfortable in is going to be the number one or a very high standard of growth as a growth market if you consider the whole country right at this, today. All right, so what we need to do to increase our chances of finding an area set to do amazing things on a national scale is increase our catchment area of interest to the whole country. We want to find those amazing opportunities, and to do that, as mentioned, it's not much chance it's going to be around the door. It may be, but suburbs and local government areas sometimes have longer periods, many years in some cases, of static or no growth, and then they might spike. There's not much chance we're going to time that, okay? So to even things out and find those markets ready to really grow from day one, we want to look across the whole country, compare them all together, and find those premium opportunities. To do that, we obviously need to increase our comfort level, our resilience, our tools, our research, develop that framework, as I mentioned before, to be able to compare and contrast and gain that confidence. And then we need to obviously negotiate. So I'm going to be able to take you through each of these steps and give you some helpful hints tonight as well. How can we do this? Really quickly, we don't compare state to state, okay? Even James, as you've mentioned, you're looking in South Australia or Victoria. Victoria is made up of many different markets, each moving in different directions, different price points in Melbourne, pushing and pulling, regional, coastal, satellite cities, all doing different things. And if we look at a state, it's too general. It's not a shortcut we should be taking, okay? National media stories love to grasp onto states. Western Australia's in the doldrums, stay away. Queensland's booming, let's just buy anywhere. It doesn't work like that. Even city by city is too general in many cases. This is not our answer to investing anywhere in the country. So how do we do it? The key is looking at local government areas. What our research has shown is generally a local government area, usually around 30, 40, 50 suburbs, 550, 5 from memory, LGAs in the country. Each do similar things for similar reasons, okay? A local government area is usually a nice grouping of suburbs doing similar things for similar reasons. They're moving in the same direction. It's a good enough number to be able to reliably assess market health and dynamic and compare those local government areas against each other. You can pick a local government area in Queensland and that market's reliably doing things for similar reasons, and then compare and contrast it elsewhere. All right, so that's the secret. It starts with the local government area, and then we've got to get the suburb, the street, and the property right, but that is how we begin this journey. In doing this, obviously, if we have a spreadsheet or a system or many different data sets or points or talking to other experts, etc., to gather up information about local government areas, and it takes us 6 months to gather that information up, to collate it all, to make a decision. Our decision is going to be 6 months out of date. Okay, so if we're only able to gather and process information for one suburb in one day, that's timely information. If we're opening up the whole country and it takes us longer to do that process, to perform that analysis, then we're not dealing with timely information. So we might be getting, finding those areas of absolute and peak opportunity, but by the time we find them, it's already moved. We've got many people in the market now. It's already had growth, and we're having to negotiate with other investors. Okay, so this only works if you can increase your catchment area of interest to the whole country, and you can rely on live and timely information to make your decisions today and not a 6-month time snap. This is particularly important, I guess, for research reports or any source of property information. You've got to question where the information is from and potentially the lag in getting it into your hands, okay? There may be a third-party purchase of information. There may be the collation of that and then the selling and providing of it to the research provider or the report provider, etc. It might take them a few weeks then to gather that together into a report format, to collate it, to publish it, to then send it. In some cases, it might be a quarterly report that's already 8 or 10 weeks out of date by the time it is received. Okay, so always question that. At Ripehouse, we own all of our own data sets. We pride ourselves on that. It's at great overheads, I suppose, and resources required to do that. We have to do that because multiple times per day, we've developed our systems from the ground up to be able to be timely to the day for local government areas, suburb streets and properties. Every property in the country, we're like Google, we're going out there, monitoring days on market. Is it on the market? Days on market? Has it been discounted or not? And then recalculating suburb level metrics like days on market, sales volumes, growth, yield, whatever it might be. Street level metrics like owner occupiers versus tenants, houses versus units, or even public housing and crime. Things like this that impact value and growth. We're calculating those very regularly to provide live research insights. That might sound very confusing, very bewildering. I'll try and keep it quite higher level tonight, but just understand that we're trying to look for these indicators of imminent and future growth. There's no point looking at previous growth as an indicator of future growth. We've got to look at things a little bit differently and understand the drivers of growth. Look for those stars aligning, and then exactly when we determine those stars aligning, that day, be ready to actually purchase. Okay, so I'll just reiterate this point. Timing is everything. We need to be able to analyze the whole country to find the highest peak potential, but we need to be able to do that in a timely fashion. That's the only takeaway from these two slides. It's critically important. Let me know if there's any questions on that. Let me know if I need to slow down. I get very passionate and involved. Let me know if you'd like me to clear something up again. But I just want to make sure that this is really bedded down for us. So this is a visual example, I suppose, of what I've just talked about. A market lies dormant for, in some cases, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, depending on the market. The stars aligning in a market, things like days on market, sales volumes, etc. We're tracking that, the predictive measures, those stars aligning to create a buying window. In some cases, based on our research, that buying window is really only open for about 10 to 12 weeks before you start to see momentum really coming into that market very quickly. Okay, growth already starting to occur, but lots of other investors. We don't want to be in the green area when the growth is occurring because there's many others in that market as well. It's now low level, mass media, larger buying groups all falling into this market. We want to position ourselves just before them and use those masses to deliver us the uplift and growth. From what we've seen, you can generally, if you get in just before this, you can negotiate really effectively and pick up 5% on entry compared to leaving it 10 to 12 weeks after, if you get the market and the stars aligning right, if that makes sense. Okay, James has just mentioned an issue with data from another provider. I won't name names here, but he has mentioned that it is an issue with another provider of property information around South Australia. It is limited, even on properties sold some time ago. So I'll go through potentially an example tonight, James, of South Australia. Our data is standardised for every state in the country. In some cases, it's far more difficult to find information in one state versus another. But we will only provide a data set if we can find it for the whole country, because we have to be able to compare the whole country. An example of that is crime information per suburb. Very easy to find in New South Wales, very hard to find out here in Tasmania. We actually had to go through academic sources to commission and work with them to find that information at a suburb level, to be able to then provide that at a national level, okay? So it's very important to be able to provide it at a national perspective and fill those gaps. All right, let's move forward really quickly, because this slide I just wanted to illustrate the point. If we combine each layer of this system, which we should be critically analysing each purchase with or without anything that you'll see tonight, we need to be understanding how a local government area impacts growth, drives growth, how you need to make sure that the suburb you pick amplifies that growth, the street and the property. And it's, you can really negotiate effectively if you're getting in before the market momentum and masses, position yourself just before it and potentially picking up a really nice uplift of growth. Okay, these are numbers which I will break down in a case study with a Ripehouse user who was able to reliably generate 25% capital uplift per property in the first 12 months. And these are numbers that we're actually quite familiar with when this system is implemented end to end. And those numbers, obviously the difference between growth on a standard property purchase is, fundamentally different. I know what price, with these magic numbers, that allows you to enter into a property with an 80% LVR to be able to potentially refinance in a 12-month period and purchase a similar price property once again. It really unlocks asset base or accumulation. It really unlocks our investment goals, our retirement goals, what we're actually doing this property investment thing for. Okay, we need to be implementing this system in each of the stages to amplify our growth and achieve really strong results. Okay. Just to probably really quickly go into a little bit of our track record, where we've come from and what we've done, all right? Because for a few years, we were a research house, we were gathering data, we're providing research tools, okay? Then we realized we could do and could deliver amazing recommendations, okay? We were very specific in these recommendations. There's no point in recommending a suburb if we don't also tell you which streets, why, and which properties to purchase and how to negotiate on them, okay? There's no point giving you a city or a local government area recommendation if we don't tell you which suburb, when, and how much to pay, okay? It has to be an end-to-end recommendation. You can't be left asking questions, okay? Each part of this puzzle needs to be solved and provided. So when we include research or recommendations in our reports or in our software, we tell you exactly where, how, and why to purchase. In doing so, we're very specific down to the exact streets. And because we use street-level analysis to find and pick those streets, our results are very strong traditionally, based on retrospective analysis of our research reports. Okay? We started actually giving suburb recommendations at the beginning of 2015. That was before we got really good at the street level analysis, okay? So that's going back a few years. Each of those suburbs still, however, generated 10.1% per annum growth. Then we were featured on the cover story of Money magazine back in September of 2015, and we gave our 133 best street recommendations in our hottest suburbs for growth across the country, and each one of those as an average, since then, has averaged 14.9% capital growth. Moving forward, our monthly research reports have then generated 13.9 back in first issue, February 2000, beginning of 16, into 14.5%. You can see we're improving our systems and the results are showing it. And then we introduced our artificial intelligence engine, which is consistently improving ourselves and has been able to generate 18.7% results. That's a 12-month period from last October. Obviously, that's the last 12-month period available. So that's the time period that has analysed, but you can see the results from that particular period were outstanding. Okay, this is the track record. This is a little bit of background about, and I'll take you through the November 2017 research report. At the high-level introduction, very shortly, an actual example of a Ripehouse user who has done amazing things is the story of Guy Williams. If you want more information on this, please go to thefrontierinvestor.com.au. That's our Ripehouse blog. We've got a 4-part research series about Guy, why he does what he does, when and how, the exact properties he's purchased, how he negotiates, how he inspects, and how he potentially hires tradies, etc. in these areas. The first 10 properties he purchased with Ripehouse, in the first 10 months, he averaged 25% growth on each property, 105% cash-on-cash return, an average yield of 6.25%. So you can go through those properties and you can see and touch and feel. It's an outstanding story. All right, this is where we sit with our November research report. One thing to highlight, the report is, I think, 80 to 90 pages. It's a tremendous amount of detail per suburb recommendation. We tell you what to pay, which properties to target, and the exact street level areas. So as an example, we've got there, the top suburb is an Adelaide inner suburb of $505,000 for a 3 or 4 bedroom house to target in only 1,000 dwellings. Okay, it's not the whole suburb that is included, it's only 1,000 particular dwellings, and I'll show you exactly how we find those dwellings in a moment. I have broken down the details for all 11 suburb recommendations in the report. We don't limit it to the top 10. It's never been less than 10, but it's usually about 10, 11, 12, up to 15 suburbs that make the cut. We have a top tier which make the cut into the report, and we also have about 10 times that amount which you can actually access in the software. So if none of these are ticking your boxes, about another 100 or 120 suburbs that are right up at that top tier of our recommendation in different parts of the country, different price points, different strategies. So I'll show you how you can find those in a minute also. Obviously, I'm not revealing the suburb names here or even the local government areas. This is extremely valuable information. Our recommendations are very specific, okay? But I am willing, right now, on the line, you can identify the price points and the types of properties and the areas, etc., for us to take a vote. So all of you on the line tonight, get in quickly. I'll leave this open for 1 or 2 minutes. Let me know which of these you would like us to focus on. So just let me know the city or the area. So Adelaide, pick 3, or regional Victoria, pick 1, or Queensland, pick 2, or Tasmania, pick 1. Just let me know. So Ben's come through. There's a first there with regional Victoria. Let me know 1, 2, 3, or 4 in regional Vic. If that makes sense. Use once again. Hi, you. Big shout out, mate. Regional Victoria number 1. Sounds good. Please keep those coming through. I will mention. So I've just lost my train of thought. There's quite a lot of people coming through. This is a good response. I will be obviously going into the most popular pick and demonstrating exactly how we find these street level areas, because we have to be really fussy of how we pick these. Okay, lots of regional Victoria. So Sunshine Coast, regional Victoria 1, regional Victoria 1, regional Victoria 1, Brisbane number 1, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane North, regional Victoria 1, Adelaide other, regional Victoria, Brisbane 3-bedder, which I'm assuming is the Sunshine Coast, Adelaide inner. Okay, I will mention. So this is my train of thought returns. Thank you. We've got a lot of interest in regional Victoria number 1. I think that's going to be our winner tonight. It's probably a good thing that's occurred. When a market or a state is emerging, and I've had a lot of questions around WA by Ripehouse users in the last few weeks. Okay, people think they can get into a market which is down in the doldrums and really buy into and find and negotiate hard and purchase a bargain. You're buying at the bottom. Okay, if you can just think back to that slide though, these markets have a long period of substandard growth, and if you're holding a property in these markets and they're not doing anything, and the cost of that and holding that property is not the, obviously it might not be going backwards in value, but the opportunity cost of having your money in another property that is going forward is real. That is opportunity cost that is affecting your bottom line, okay? So even though there are now, and I've noticed out of our growth predictions within the software, there are a few Western Australia suburbs emerging, 3 or 4, okay? But they are isolated. We have an outstanding selection, a growing abundance of growth recommendations in Adelaide. As a grouping, South Australia is really emerging very strongly. Regional Victoria is doing outstanding things once again, but it's probably a little bit further along than Adelaide. Tasmania, if we were having this conversation, research reports a couple of years ago were very heavily featured, featuring Tasmania. We have got a lot of heat in the market down here at the moment. So as that progresses through that period, we have less and less peak opportunities. Same in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast. A lot of heat in those markets. Still a couple of picks, obviously, but the real bulk of opportunity from our research and indications with reliable groupings, not the one or two here or there, nice, reliable patches of many suburbs doing similar things for similar reasons, Adelaide and regional Victoria. Okay, so I think regional Victoria, number one is our pick. I will say that the first three regional Victorias are the same city. Regional number 4 is city number 2, which is separate. So that city is obviously going to be revealed when we go into that suburb. What has been chosen there is the cheaper suburb, 235, 3-bedroom houses, 800 dwellings nominated in that suburb. So let's go in. I just wanted to make a really quick point. I promise this is going to be quick, a little bit more research and the why before we jump into the what and the how. I wanted to make this point. We want suburbs set for imminent growth from day one of purchase. We don't want to be holding the property for 6 months before it moves. And we don't want to be 6 months after growth and come up against the masses. Okay, we want to be sophisticated. We want to use the masses to deliver us the growth. And we want to try and find suburbs that have been laying dormant. The stars that are aligning, we can then purchase and let the market give us the growth we're looking for. How do we do that? How have we been able to find these suburbs in the report using the software, etc.? We are looking and monitoring, it's 121 different data sets. Things like public housing, ripple effects, more expensive suburbs growing next door to cheaper ones, distance and amenity, sales volumes, days on market, price growth, yields, public housing concentrations, all of these beautiful things. I love research and I love data, so I get very excited about it. I'm not trying to go through this big list to bewilder and confuse. We use these measures and find patterns. I call it, let's just call it the stars aligning. When we see these things reliably occurring, our research has shown that it's usually linked to imminent and outstanding growth. All right? It's not, a black box. It doesn't need to be. It's all based on you. It's based on people. It's based on buyer behavior, common sense, logic. Okay, the reason why people live and do certain things. All right, so I'm going to go through a really high-level introduction to how the system works. It's a lot more complicated than this, but this is the 80% of it, if that makes sense. We don't bother. I really want to clarify this point. We don't bother looking at train line announcements, employment, jobs, population growth, income growth, whatever it might be, okay? Because if you do that, if you get wrapped up into tracking and finding transport or infrastructure or employment spend or whatever it may be and comparing local government areas against each other on these numbers, you are going to get the where right. You're going to get the where right. It might be Hobart down here 2 years ago. You're tracking employment or population or income growth and you're going, Hobart looks great. I'm going to buy there. It's not going to tell you the when. Because let's think about this. If you're using population or train line information, it might be the city of Moreton Bay and you've got a train line extension, a university, a IKEA, Westfields Business Park, a marina, all these amazing things happening. But you're going to get the where right, okay? You've got a local government area saying we want 300,000 people living here by 2030. You're going to get the where right. There's going to be a lot of amazing things happening in that area over the next few years, but you're not going to get the when right. Because let's just use the common sense approach. If a train line is announced, public spending is occurring, does that cause growth, that announcement? Does the growth occur when the train line starts being built? Does the growth occur when it's finished? Or does the growth occur 2 years after it's finished and people are wanting to live there and use that train into the office and they talk to their mates and say, hey, it's great living here, come and live here? We don't know. So we don't want to look at those train line announcements and find the where. We want to be able to look at a system that will tell us the where and the when. Very important, the exact time to purchase. And how do we do that? Well, we don't look at the train line announcement. We look at the numbers. Are rents increasing? When people are moving to a new area because of these amazing things occurring, they will generally rent first. They're not going to come and buy in an area before they've lived there. if they're going to base their families there. So they will rent first. So generally in these areas, we see rents really spiking. Lots of people renting at the same time. Rents go through the roof. There hasn't been any growth yet, remember. Prices are stable, so rents go up. It's critical to have rents and yields increasing at the same time. That's our first two stars aligning. Next, are sales volumes going up? So people are renting, then 6 months after, they go, this is great, I love it here, let's buy. The job's going well, I like the school, you're getting to work nicely, this is great. They've dipped the toe in the water. 6 months after all this occurring, sales volume spike. People start buying. You also have other very early opportunistic investors noticing the yields and go, this something's positive happening here. They start buying. So you have your really sophisticated investors jumping in, and now you have all the owner-occupiers coming in as well. That's tenant-driven demand now migrating into people who want to buy and live in the area. So this is the second star aligning, and it usually occurs 6 months after. We then have another check and balance. Are days on market, the time it takes to list and then sell a property, is it decreasing or stable? Sometimes if you have lots of developers coming in and flooding the market in these boom areas, these are major city areas, by the way. In many cases, we're not talking regionals or high risk. These are key satellites or majors. So you have rents, yields, sales volumes increasing. We want to make sure days on market are stable or decreasing, so we have a tightening of the market, and then, in very simple terms, growth starts occurring. You notice we're not looking for growth as a predictor for imminent growth or future growth. We are looking at other numbers. We're not worrying about train lines or population. We are looking at core metrics, buyer behaviour, to determine imminent growth. Please, before I go into the key regional number one, yes, Darren, you will see the city that it is in a moment. I'd just love to hear your feedback on this slide. Please, positive, negative. Is it making sense? Is it understanding? Do you want more information? Please let me know in chat, everybody. All right, this is a little bit, I might leave the slides there because I'll come back to this. We will use this slide to demonstrate and give a little bit of information about how Ripehouse finds these imminent stars aligning. Suburbs. Mags, lots of sense and very clear. Good to hear. First one off the list there. Look, I'm in the account page. This is your dashboard as a Ripehouse user. Okay, obviously we are proud to be partnered with Australian Property Investor magazine, been trading and operating since 1997, Australia's longest running and trusted property information brand. A very proud alignment. We integrate closely with their content, their interviews, investor in focus, and we work hand in hand providing research. Our research tools, though, are obviously hidden behind the cloak of the Ripehouse dashboard. Okay, this is really powerful, simple research tools that do everything that I've talked about tonight. Okay, we obviously have a learning center, our internal blog, and obviously a feed in with the API. You can see all of the regular content here. You can view our current monthly research report at any time in the top right-hand side of your page. So you can click on that to view. We have 5 levels of research. We can start at the state versus state to view property clock information, but you can remember that's not worth much. Okay, it is general in nature. It's only used as a guide, but it's good to give a high-level introduction. We can do local government area versus local government area research in front of your eyes. It's a very powerful research tool. We then go, well, I'll use that as a gateway into it, suburb versus suburb, our Explore the Nation page. We then do street level analysis through our map research tool, and for all of our analytic data types, you can do, it's like stock charting on suburbs. We have our advanced research tool there. Let's jump into, really quickly, the state versus state. We are calculating this. Whenever you see the heartbeat, it means this data is live. Every single day we are recalculating state level property clock information, state level metric information, and recent growth. Okay, you can click on any one of these. Look, let's click on Victoria. As a state, Victoria, once again, many different markets going different directions, but generally in the growth stage as a state, we've got every LGA in Victoria listed here. Obviously, a lot of them to take in. We can filter them based on the LGA property clock. All right? Property clocks are a mechanism, I suppose, to understand the health. Suburbs, local government areas generally move in a cycle. 12 o'clock is a market peak. 12 to 3 is a slowdown into a recovery. At 6, 7 o'clock, you're moving into the growth phase, the early growth. As you're coming back up towards 12 o'clock, things are starting to get really heated and potentially slow down, okay? So we want to potentially purchase a local government area. We can search the whole country or any state between certain price points at between 7 and 10 o'clock on the property clock. We can now suddenly see a very short list. We also then, we have underlying metrics. The more ticks, the higher the underlying metric health of a LGA, and I like to see at least 3 out of 6. So that means 4, 5, or 6. This has now got us down to a very short list, right? So we now understand how we get into finding local government areas and comparing them across the country very easily. Our next job, as mentioned in this system, is finding suburbs that are set, the stars aligning and set to do great things for us. This takes us into our Explore the Nation page. This is an incredibly powerful page because it gives us some rich information. So the higher the metric score, the more the stars are aligning, if you're thinking back to those terms. So we're looking for obviously high metric scores. The higher the opinion score means that other property professionals, industry providers, researchers, valuers, buyers agents even, we're monitoring that information in media, tracking sentiment and positive relationships to suburbs and LGAs, and we're tracking an opinion score. The higher the opinion score, the higher it is regarded by property professionals. It also means potentially the more the word is already out. We also have an internal metric here at Ripehouse, which is an interest score. So we're tracking thousands of investors, which suburbs they're looking at, and the more people looking as qualified investors at a suburb, the higher the interest score. So in many cases, we'd like to see the stars aligning a very high metric score and potentially some opinion and interest. But we want to have very high investability and good, strong, stable income. There's no point having a high yield if it's got low vacancy or high vacancy rates and low rental turnover. We want to have lots of properties on the market that are in demand and in the key sweet spot streets. So more in that in a moment. What we've done here, and this was just a really quick explanation, we've found a grouping of LGAs, but we haven't really got many options at a suburb level. We don't have that fit, all right? So that fit, the LGA and the suburb fit, is done for you using an off-the-shelf strategy implementation here at Ripehouse, which we call the undercover strategy. This is extremely powerful. I am going to resize this so I don't give too much away because this is extremely valuable information. You can see here and there's about 120 suburbs that obviously have a very different shape. Okay, some of these haven't passed our internal mechanisms for inclusion in the report because we do go in a very deep dive of due diligence. But Sebastopol, forgive my pronunciation, is the regional Victoria #1 pick. Okay, this is the suburb that you requested, and we are going to be going into today to find the exact streets to purchase in and the exact properties to purchase. All right, I'm going to be using this. This is our #1 pick. Obviously, I'll zoom out so we can see the town and where it sits. We're in Ballarat. Ballarat's south. We can see we're 2 suburbs away from the CBD. I'm not sure if those of you familiar with Ballarat. This is the regional in Victoria that does have many growth recommendations within Ripehouse. Okay, it's doing amazing things, as is regional Victoria generally. In some cases, though, we've got a lot of heat in regional Victoria. I might just jump back into the slides really quick. this is probably going to illustrate things a little bit clearer, because we do have two other strategies within Ripehouse. That is an undercover suburb that has high metric score, great fit with the local government area, low opinion, low interest. We're getting in nice and early. When you start seeing emerging opinion and sentiment in the media or professionals or people in the know, it turns into a boomerang suburb. So you can see how the shape changes. Then when investors catch on, the word is out, you still, in most cases, got really nice growth occurring that's hard to sometimes buy. You've now got, the shape changes once again and it becomes a bit green. I'm just illustrating that there. In really loose terms, this is how they fit into our visualization. So we're looking for undercovers and boomerangs that are emerging, that have great buying dynamic, and we can effectively purchase and negotiate. That sort of shows you how they generally fit. There's always exceptions to the rule, and sometimes, in the majority of cases, it's about 3 to 6 months transitioning between the three strategies. Okay. Our next job, once we've got the suburb right, is getting the street level right, because we have to now purchase in this suburb and achieve outstanding growth. Let's think about the suburb where you live in. You're obviously an expert. You know the streets to stay away from. The locals would never live there. It's a place to be avoided. Okay? You know those streets, and you know the streets that are going ahead in leaps and bounds. People are demanding to live there. They're driving rents up. Everyone's talking or wanting to live there. It's near the shops or whatever it might be. You know those streets. You're a local area expert. We want to become that expert for every suburb that we're looking at anywhere in the country. It's critical to get this right. It's often overlooked, and we pride ourselves on being the best provider of this research and information in the country. I please challenge you to show otherwise. We have done extensive research of what occurs or what a street level needs to look like to lead a suburb in terms of growth. All right, get your pens and papers out. I'll take you through exactly what we look for now. We have found a combination of 5 street level factors that, when combined together, form a Ripehouse sweet spot. Okay? When you combine these 5 factors together, it generates an average of 21.9% above average growth compared to the remainder of the suburb. Okay, so the suburb goes up 4% in 12 months. The street sweet spot will go up 5%. Over a 10-year period in Sydney, on estimated projections of growth, this is talking $240,000 of extra growth. If you get this right, by itself, it's an amazing layer that needs to be applied to each purchase, and it means big numbers. So what is it? We want to find under 15% public housing at a street level. There are very strong correlations between high public housing and low growth. Very strong. Obviously, it serves a public benefit and a great thing for us as a nation and for supporting people in housing. But as an investor, we need to know where it is and to potentially avoid the high concentrations of it. We need to find streets that have lots of the in-demand property. Okay? The important thing to know here is that if in the suburb 2-bedroom units are in demand, it is very particular to the suburb. Okay, we need to know that type of property, and we need to know the streets where that is in demand. Okay, we need to find strong tenant pockets with strong tenant demand, above average yield, and above average rent. You remember back to those stars aligning. We've got to get these 5 things right, and when combined together, they form a Ripehouse sweet spot. It's generally only 10 to 15% of each suburb. Some suburbs do not have one. Some suburbs have, slightly more than that within it, but we need to find them and get this right. How do we do this? Darren's mentioned, is Sebastopol in the buying window now? So our indications, Darren, is yes, it is. He has also mentioned Redden has been a little further along. We have had it featured in our research reports, I think, for about 6 months. I'm not sure, Darren, just mention if you are a subscriber or not. Oh, sorry. Yes, Redden, so you mentioned here, Redden's moved a good 10% in growth since I got your report about 2 months ago. That is very good to know. I suppose the question, Darren, that remains is, did you purchase 2 months ago in Redden to achieve that 10%? very positive things occurring in this city for many reasons. I don't, as mentioned before, get hung up on the reasons. I like to look at the stars aligning, if that's making sense. Right, when we come into these areas, so I'm just going to close some tabs off. Every one of these red dots, so we've been able to find and classify as Google, as a search engine across the internet, each on-market property, and we have found 105 qualified properties. If they don't list the address, it doesn't get included on this map. We have to have complete information on it, all right? For every one of these properties, the darker the red dot, the higher the price. You can view the number of days the property's been on market, and potentially you can see the green percentage figures over here on the right, how much the property has been discounted since it's been purchased, since it's been listed on the market. So this particular property here is now currently, I might go to one here that's been on the market a little bit less. It's been on the market for 45 days. In that time, it's been discounted by 5%. You can see they started off live at $229,950, and then soon after listing, they dropped it down to $217,500. You will notice in some cases that our days on market figure is higher for a suburb than other sources. We challenge every metric because we need to make it right. Okay, it needs to suit our purpose for analysis. So if a sales agent lists a property for sale, it's not going so well, or they list it too high, or they go to auction, it doesn't work, they might yank it off the market, or their vendor might yank it off the market and relist it a couple of months later. It might even be with a different agent. We don't classify that as a new listing. We don't reset the days on market because that's been a compromised campaign. They're the ones we want to know about. So our days on market data does not reset and is therefore in some cases higher than other sources of information. This is one of the examples of how we challenge the status quo to deliver, above or, challenge the status quo to deliver above or beyond growth, okay? Compared to what we generally accept is the results that we're used to. I've just gone around a little bit of a circle there. I hope that makes sense. I want to really quickly get into how we analyze street by street within this suburb. So we've now got 105 properties to sift through. It doesn't need to be a big job, all right? We can find exactly where the public housing is in the suburb. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. We've got lots of little hinters and things that pop up on the screen. You can see the darker the red, the higher the public housing. So we can click on this area and it will tell us that there's 23.8% public housing in this street level area. The lighter the red, the lower the public housing. We remember our magic number is 15. We don't need to get the pen and paper out and remember all these street names. I'll show you how we do it quickly in a moment. We can see here where tenants and owner-occupiers live. Lots of owner-occupiers in the south, lots of tenants up here in the north. We want strong tenant demand. We want lots of houses. In this suburb, the most in-demand property type is 3-bedroom houses. So we want lots of green, which is where the houses are. Units are in the yellow. We want to see above average rent in the purple, above average yield in the yellow. I don't need to list all of these and take notes. We can go up here to the Ripehouse sweet spots toggle. We can click on our capital growth toggle. We have flipping cash flow strategies. If you're looking for renovate for profit or flipping development, whatever your strategy is, you use the software differently. Okay, equally applicable, but it is a different usage. Tonight I'm focusing on a growth and yield strategy. If you're able to generate and do amazing things, sometimes in many cases it might be better just to get a nice performer that's a simple buy and growth yield performer that moves you into another property sooner than trying to get very complicated, potentially doing an advanced or detailed renovation that takes a long period of time. Okay, what we're talking about tonight is a very strong growth and yield strategy. We do that, you might have noticed that it automatically adjusts our tolerances for each of our street level metrics. If you click on the badge, it will do that automatically, and you can see that 3 street level areas have dropped through the filters and been displayed now on the map. these are the street level areas we want to target. We only want to look at properties in these to potentially access the sweet spot 21.9% relative growth uplift. Okay, these are the areas we want to target. Can you remember we want to target 3-bedroom houses? That is what the demand in this suburb is pointing towards, and potentially we don't want to be left holding a white elephant and buying a 1-bedroom unit. Okay, we want to target what people are wanting to live in and rent. I only want to see properties located in the orange sweet spots. I only want to see 3-bedroom houses. I'll leave all the other settings as they are, and let's apply that. So we're going to get from 105 properties down to a smaller number very quickly, and now we have 8. All right, one of them's under contract. The cheapest is 203,000, which is actually that property we saw. No, we didn't load that one up. We've got a couple where the agent might have been cheeky and called it a house or a villa, but it's actually a split. It might be a shared block, etc. So sometimes we have a little bit of a mismatch between what the agent describes a property and what the actual address would disclose. So you can view those there. Let's start with this property at the top. Obviously, it's been on the market for a while. It's probably, I would imagine, been listed for quite a while, then taken off the market and relisted. It's been discounted by 7% over this time. We have algorithms. You can go in and view the original listing. My internet's just causing some issues. I'll just load that up again. 1 second. I'll just flip back into another property and come back into that. Okay. While we're in this property, for the purpose of illustration and loading, let me know if there's issues with the connection, dropping out everyone on the line, if there's audio or visual, or if there's connections with me actually accessing the internet, whilst also having my connection drained by loading a webcast and viewing. I can go back into that property in a moment, but while we're in this one, we may as well, each of these 8 properties need to be compared against each other. This one's obviously looked quite new on loading. The condition of the property has been assessed as good by our automated algorithm that assesses the likely condition of a property. It obviously gets it wrong in some cases. It does learn from how you override it. So if you disagree, you can override it. In this case, I do believe it looks in good condition. You can view the original listing and the listing source. You can view suburb and area level research. It will then do a full comparable. Thanks, Mags. All good here. I think that must have been a localized issue. Each time it loads up one of these pop-ups, it's actually doing back and forth requests to the server. So if my internet was a little bit iffy then with the webcast going on as well, which is draining things, I might have needed to load that pop-up up again and it will refresh things. So what we can do then, we can obviously go in and view images or the original listing for each of these properties. It's gone away and found the most 5 likely comparable properties. If we find one as superior, we disagree with it, we can remove it and it will inject in the 6 most. All right, it will take those. Please take the time to do this for each and every property because we want to use these comparable properties to potentially negotiate with the agent. So this is a big tip. We want to question the agent. Give me the list of your comparables that you are using to justify the asking price. You want to methodically go through that list and go, I disagree with this one. It is a superior property. This is an alternative comparable property to justify my offer. This is how I negotiate, especially when we're coming in under market or getting in when days on market are high and decreasing. In these markets when the stars are aligning, we want to create doubt of value and we want to use lower valued comparables and argue that they're similar to justify our offer. And we want to then have the vendor, we want to have the sales agent, we want the job done for them. We want to take that evidence from us and use that to negotiate with the vendor on our behalf. Okay, we don't want to negotiate with the agent. We want the agent to negotiate with the vendor and justify this as the value of the property. This is how I operate. This is the key to being able to negotiate and unlock that process. Knowing your comparables, questioning the comparables that have been supplied to you, and methodically dropping in potentially inferior properties, but using those to justify a lower offer price. We know what the true value of the property is. We're potentially trying to pick it up under that. right? This is the process here. We also then take those 5 comparables and we have to run it through a series of filters, which the software does very well. It uses that as a baseline comparable, but then if the property is too far away from school, shopping or transport or public housing concentrations, we know that negatively and positively impacts value. We've done a lot of research on this. Shopping in schools and transport have a major impact in some cases on assessed value. So that is then passed through a series of gates to adjust our baseline appraisal of 290,000. The asking price is 295. We feel potentially this property is only worth 285. So that's going to be my, at the most, my endpoint of negotiation. I will potentially, but as an example, potentially finding comparables at 260, 255, 260, trying to inject those into the conversation with the agent, potentially coming in with an offer at 265, 270 and landing south of 285. We've done our job properly if we can. The estimated rent on this property is 290 and the yield is 5.3% estimated. That's appraised yield. Does that make sense? I've gone into a little bit of detail about how we can use research and data to negotiate. Comparables are the key, but we also need to know things like the condition of the property, public housing around, street level information, how long it's been on the market, has it been discounted, what is the general sentiment in a suburb, etc. All very important to negotiate, especially when it's remotely, but the key is using comparables to our advantage. Look, I might just go through really quickly. I'm going to go into a way that you can get involved with us in a moment where we can work with you, I suppose, to make sure you're getting the most out of the system. But more importantly, one-on-one advice on how to do that comparable process and potentially land on a strategy to negotiate on property. All right, so more on that in a moment. I just wanted to go through one of our users' story. Okay, this is a story of Lauren, who's a Ripehouse investor. She'd actually been looking to purchase her first investment property for about 18 months before she eventually did. Okay, she went to, she actually found out about Ripehouse at a property seminar, and she was talking to the person next to her in the break. She had been to multiple seminars, and this is something that I see quite often. As soon as you go to, you're learning 2 different strategies, or you hear 2 different words of advice, or 2 different seminars, they're obviously not going to be exactly the same. So wherever they are different, it creates doubt and confusion, and you have to fill in the blanks. That I have typically seen results in analysis paralysis. Okay, confusion, frustration, or people become scared to act in many cases. This, I suppose, as time goes on, builds up and puts a lot of pressure. If it's been 18 months without purchasing, that first purchase needs to be a real pearler. It needs to be amazing, okay, to justify this time and effort. So that's, as this generally goes on, and we're bearing in mind we haven't purchased yet, and in this case Lauren hadn't yet either, because of that pressure, we gravitate to more advanced strategies. Structural or even a cosmetic reno, higher purchase price, higher variance, potentially higher risk. It's an experience play, subdivision, whatever it might be, okay? We are going to those lengths to justify the search and the level of expense to get there, all right? Lauren heard about Ripehouse. She came along to a webcast. She got involved with the community, and she was able to purchase within 3 weeks of a subscription because it made sense to her. Sorry, they were actually in her words. It just made sense. I guess, we were able to cut through and demonstrate that if you can find a growth and yield performer and you're able to purchase that reliably, it sets you up to be able to purchase again, more regularly. It doesn't need to be a complicated or a stressful or a prolonged or advanced purchase if we get this right. Okay, it can be simple. It can be a little, or not so little necessarily, a growth and yield performer. It ticks all those boxes and it gets us moving towards our property goals. So in this case, Lauren was able to implement this strategy. It just made sense and continue and get moving on her investment journey. All right. Just before we go on, and potentially I'll demonstrate how we can go into a little bit more detail in how we can support the negotiation and the software process in a moment. And obviously I'm around for Q&A in a moment as well. Just before we go on though, I want to say a big thank you for taking the time out tonight and spending it with me going through property. I do speak fast, I do get quite passionate about things, so I do apologise. But if you've made it this far, you're obviously pretty excited as well, like I am. Pretty excited to charge towards your next purchase, getting it right, getting that one in the bag and moving on to the next. And you know, why we're investing in this, you know, property, moving towards, you know, lifestyle, moving away from our job, or potentially retiring, or setting up our futures, our children's futures into the next generation. Okay, this is why we do this. This is why we love it. This is why we invest in property. This is why we're here taking time out, I suppose, listening. So based on this fact, I feel that Ripehouse is a perfect fit for you and other DIY investors if this is making sense. All right? As an exclusive thank you, you might be aware that Ripehouse is only available as a subscription service. Okay, you can see it's very particular. The research is specialised, it is bespoke, it is very specific, and it is very valuable. It is only available to subscribers. We only open the keys up to those who are part of the community. We have to protect that value for our community members. Does that make sense? It is available for a subscription of $1,597 per annum. Okay, everything that you've seen tonight, all of the systems, research, support, reports, etc., are available for that price. That is the ticket price if you were to walk into the website today. As an special and exclusive thank you for taking the time out and being with us tonight, I would love to extend to you a $400 saving on that cost. It's bringing it down to $1,197 per annum. I will really stress and include the importance of the reports. We've obviously digested the November report at a higher level tonight, but obviously they are very valuable and they unlock the subscription. They touch the surface. You know, there's obviously a lot of other recommendations and ways to use the software, but they are your desktop, your coffee table guide, okay, that are supplied every month. They are normally valued at $97 each. And as a thank you offer, as part of this, to get you moving and supported throughout this process, I'm going to include every one monthly report for a period of 12 months included in the $1,197 subscription fee. Okay, this is to obviously get people moving together in the same direction with everything that we need to do it most effectively. This is only available for a short period of time. I'm doing this tonight so we can all get started together and then we can all support each other moving forward together. And that means us with you. All right, so it's only available until 11 p.m. tonight. This is not something that we usually offer. We are offering this tonight I guess we've been having a few questions lately. We're heading into a new year, we're heading into a Christmas period, and we are wanting to offer a different level of support. All right, we want to step up to the plate with you heading into Christmas and gain the confidence with you to purchase your next property. Okay, so this is something that we don't usually offer. It is only available tonight. But if you take us up on the thank you offer of $1,197 for an annual subscription, we will include private Skype coaching to get you started with the software and make sure you're using it right. In that process, we will go through everything you've seen tonight for your particular purpose, find the suburbs, the street, and the individual properties, and then potentially talk and brainstorm a negotiation strategy. All right? So it's an end-to-end service for that first property purchase. As mentioned earlier on in the webcast, for each suburb featured in our property reports, we will be recording a short video of how to use the software for that suburb. So opening it up, talking about why we have selected it, what we are seeing in the data, a brain dump of everything we are seeing in research world, the whys. Why is that suburb included? Then we'll obviously use the software to find the streets and talk through actual properties on the market. So that is included for every suburb in every report, okay, and only available for subscribers, okay. So this is to support your subscription and everything that you're doing as a subscriber. Obviously, a lot of you are online tonight who are also subscribers. Big shout out to you guys, but that is also included in your current subscription. So anytime we improve or we evolve and add to the subscription and what we provide, we also retrospectively apply it to any other subscriber. So hope that makes sense. We would love to have you as part of the community, all right? So lots of other people use Ripehouse. It's out there. We've been operating since 2011, but a lot of very well-known professionals in the industry use it for what it does amazingly well. And that is to help us with research to find amazing property investments and to potentially negotiate and effectively purchase them. I'm sure you've seen the value and the power of it tonight. So that's some kind words from other people who use software, from investors to professionals in the industry. I just wanted to take us through, before I get into the Q&A, exactly how to take this up and get started with us as part of the community. So let's do this together. We'll go to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. Okay, it's very important that you use this URL because this is going to automatically load in tonight's coupon, which is the $400 saving that activates all of those added extras. Okay, so when you load that page up, click on the big red Get Started button. That will load up our standard sign up page, and make sure that that coupon code has been applied automatically. So you might need to tab through some of the fields to refresh. It might take a second or two, but you need to confirm on there that the $400 discount has been applied. It will show a message there to say that it has. So enter in your name, email, and phone, then click on the green subscribe button. At that point, you enter in your credit card information. It is enforced and protected via Stripe, which is best in class, a global payment processing platform. It manages your subscription. Okay, you can use that to manage your subscription ongoing. Your information is transferred to Stripe, not to us. We do not hold it, and that maintains and ensures a very strict and compliant and protected transaction. Okay? If there's any questions on that process, please let me know. Relatively straightforward, but I'm on hand for any questions. All right. I'm going to press mute in a few moments, and I'm going to gather up tonight's questions. Okay? If you don't want to stick around for questions and call it an evening, thank you so much for attending. I really hope that you have found tonight informative. You've got a lot of value. It's made sense. You've got takeaways that you can go and apply in your investing future. That is the goal. So thank you so much for taking the time out and joining me. As mentioned, if you don't want to stick around for Q&As, I'll be going on to mute now. I'm coming back in a few moments. If you do want to stick around, obviously I'm here as long as it takes to go through each and every question. Make sure that there's nothing left on the table. If it is very subjective or related to your particular search, I'm happy to do that via private chat. If it is obviously of interest and value to everyone else, I'll talk through with the whole group that particular question. So once again, if you don't want to stick around, thank you so much. I hope you've got a lot of benefit and happy investing. I'll be back in a few moments. All right, let's get into the Q&A. So I'll start here with the most direct and relevant question that's just popped up is, Rashish, why there is no suburbs of Melbourne that came up in your November research? Okay, so there are suburbs in Melbourne that are part of our undercover strategy. So as mentioned, there's about 120 suburbs that do qualify for our top tier of recommendations every month. Okay, that moves in and out. New suburbs appear and they move out each month. From that, we do keep an internal dialogue of, above and beyond due diligence. We do pass the net over, and we do favour when suburbs are surrounded by other suburbs. The storyline is similar, and there's consistency in that message. So I guess whilst there are suburbs of opportunity in Melbourne, and they definitely are available through the Explore the Nation page, they're, I guess, patchy at best, and there's no common denominator. Okay, so you've got a few around the sort of 6 or 7 or 800,000 price points, within 10, 15 Ks of the CBD in many cases, but you do have very patchy market dynamics in Melbourne. High price points, patchy supply issues, as we all know, in many suburbs in and around CBD. Lots of supply is the other issue, even out in the middle to outer ring. So one of the key components of growth is not just positive demand and interest in an area, it's also limited supply, constricting of supply. And we also want to have lots of suburbs surrounded by other suburbs that are doing similar things. So it needs to be a consistent storyline, which we're just not really seeing in Melbourne as a CBD or city location. The exception is obviously a few suburbs within Melbourne. We obviously don't have the exact number, but say 4 or 5 suburbs included in the Explore the Nation page that do qualify, but far higher concentrations of opportunity in regional Victoria. Same can be said for Sydney, with 3, 4, half a dozen suburbs in the Greater Sydney area still appearing in our growth recommendations. But going back 2 or 3 years, they were surrounded by many other suburbs. They are, on an island, so to speak. They're in and amongst themselves, separated in Melbourne and Sydney at the moment. Hope that makes sense. All right, I might just go back up to the top of the list. Please keep the questions coming through. I'm happy to engage in any individual question, or obviously if it's related to, I guess Darren's has popped up here, just before I go back up the list, in terms of, could you possibly show what stage Bacchus Marsh is in? I live here and houses are selling with offers over asking, but a bit confused about more investing here. So before I go back up the list again, please keep the questions coming through. I'll jump into this question, Darren, around Bacchus Marsh. So we can, of course, use a suburb search and view any suburb information, what is occurring. So if you've mentioned that there's lots of offers over asking, it's sounding like there's already a lot of interest here, potentially a lot of heat in the market. I just want to get a bit of a feel for the individual properties on the market. It's telling us that there's 88 of them on the market. I just need to get my bearings, whereabouts we're actually based. So this is Western Melbourne. Looks like about an hour's drive. Correct me if I'm wrong, Darren. Let's have a look at the street level dynamic, what's occurring there, if there's a sweet spot for investment. Okay, so the dynamic, and we sometimes see this where we have a mismatch between higher yields and potentially higher rents and where tenants are demanding. Okay, so that might be more of a mature market or a heated market where now you've had growth occurred in the, potentially the streets that we've targeted for higher rents and higher yields. That's where the growth has occurred, and that's dropped your rents, or your rents have stayed high, but the yields have dropped. I might just clarify that point, because we're buying when the street level dynamic is optimum. That's obviously going to change when growth occurs. Okay, rents might not, and they usually do not keep up with growth when it goes through a growth cycle. So you'll have high rents and the yields are dropping. So it's actually not delivering us a street level sweet spot combination, or we've got one pocket up here near the freeway where the dynamic is there, but that is liable to change. So we need to find these suburbs where the stars are aligning, but then where the streets are actually pointing us to the opportunity as well. So I'll just mention 3-bedroom houses, most common and in demand. let's see if there's any in the sweet spot areas identified. There are 3 on the markets, one under contract, one price withheld, one at 457, 10 Leela Court, if that means anything to you. Darren, you mentioned it's 45 minutes to Melbourne. Okay, Cassandra's asking about Tasmania. I did mention 2 down here. She's currently looking for an investment in Hobart. What would be my recommendation of that? So I guess you probably asked me that question directly because you do know that I live down here. I do obviously, as part of my job, keep track of research across the country, but I do, or I can speak in quite detailed fashion of Hobart if needed. But we have been recommending Hobart for quite some time. It featured very heavily in our research reports going back 2 years, but at any time, it's only been very small pockets of Hobart, okay? So when a blanket city recommendation is given, we need to get very particular about the exact suburbs. And it's been an interesting case study down here in Hobart where it has only been 1 or 2 suburbs at each time that have qualified within Ripehouse, and it started at a higher price point, West Hobart's higher price points close to CBD, and then moved every month or 2 1 suburb further out, okay? So West Hobart into Newtown, into Moona, into Glenorchy, into Claremont. Okay, currently, there are some pockets of opportunity out in the northern lower price points. Definitely, you know, Ripehouse is very relevant and useful because as you go into the lower price points, as a mature growth market like Hobart is, it's been growing for 2 or 3 years. You've got a lot of heat down here. It's now going down to the lower socio where the development's occurring. You're now, you know, public housing is becoming an issue. You need to be aware of it. So I guess there is still some opportunity down here. It's very heated, but it's now, you know, you need to be a good fit with the suburbs that offer the opportunity. All right, Rashish is just talking and mentioning the subscription. It is only provided on an annual basis. I just guess I need to clarify, you know, our recommendations are very specific and they come, we have invested very heavily in the resources that are needed to create them. Okay, so they are potentially very valuable and we do only make them available to a small community of annual investors. Okay, that value is protected for those investors and therefore it is only available via an annual subscription. I hope that's making sense. Rashish? All right, there's a lot of really quite subjective questions about individual strategies, what they recommend they do. So I might answer those one-on-one right now via chat, but it's obviously quite relevant to individuals and it's quite personal in nature in many cases. Perfectly happy to do that for each of you if you want to stick around via chat, but I will do that off the line, so there's no point sort of making that a generic conversation. Look, I will thank you so much for your time out tonight. I hope you've gained a lot from the conversation. I would really ask sincerely, if you can give me any feedback at all, positive or negative, parts of tonight's presentation that you've found useful or not so useful, things that I can improve on, things that we've done well. Your feedback would be much appreciated. If you could do that in the chat bar as well, please do. So we're always around for any questions. It'll be great to have you as part of the community, as part of tonight's special offer. So don't forget to go to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus to ensure that you don't miss out. And that offer for Skype phone coaching to use the software and make sure you're getting the most out of it for your first purchase is only available for tonight. Okay, so it's a real value to those of you needing that support to get moving with the software. I hope that makes sense. I can be contacted directly at jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au. So that's just a question that's popped up. Thanks for the feedback, Max. Always helpful. Repetition is the mother of the more I hear, the more I understand. That's good to hear, and your name is familiar. So welcome once again. Another great webinar. Thank you, Aidan. Thanks for the feedback. Rashish, thank you. I'll talk soon. Not a problem. Thank you for the kind words. All right, signing off, guys. I really appreciate the positive and reassuring feedback and sentiment. No worries. Sonia, just a quick one. How do you utilize the free coaching session? So that's obviously not part of the interface. You can use live chat support integrated on any page in the right-hand side, bottom right-hand side of your screen. That comes through to us and our customer service team as a live chat message. You can obviously email us, or we have the 1300 number, support@ripehouse.com.au, or the 1300 number at the bottom of the screen, which I'll just bring up. Excuse me. The coaching session, as mentioned tonight, is an added extra. It's not enabled through the software. So reach out to us, myself or Anna, who leads our customer service team. So jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au or anna.cooper@ripehouse.com.au to organise the coaching session. Okay, it is only available to those of you that do subscribe tonight. Our 1300 number for support is 1300 908 499. I hope that helps. Sonia, it'll be great to have you on board. Not a problem, Darren. Always a pleasure. James, on standby. If you mentioned you want to get in contact next week, not a problem. All right, I hope that answers everyone's question. Have a great evening, guys. Signing off. Thank you.